to this presentation. We're glad you could join us. This presentation is an introduction to migrating to the cloud. This presentation is too short to cover everything about migrating to the cloud, but the goal is to hopefully provide you with some information that you may not have already thought about before. Once the presentation is complete, there will be a question and answer session. A couple of the required marketing slides. If you're not familiar about Neovera, Neovera is a trusted provider of complex hosting solutions, specializing in IT consulting and infrastructure managed services. We were founded in 2001 and are headquartered in Western Virginia. Vendor agnostic. What I mean by that is that Neovera prides itself in not being tied to any one vendor and will attempt to provide you with the best solution to a problem without regard to the vendor supplying the solution. We provide 24/7 customer service, and we have a staff of unmatched technical expertise. Quick glance of Neovera's services and solutions. You can find more information on the Neovera website about our offerings, if you're interested. A little bit about myself. I'm a senior solutions architect with Neovera. I've been working with virtualization since 2005. I am Symantec certified in clusters and backups. I've had 22 years of experience with Unix and Linux systems of various types, 18 years of experience with different storage systems. I'm trained on Microsoft Windows and Cisco. On the webinar panel to your right, there's a questions section on the dashboard. Please ask your questions that you might have throughout the webinar in that questions section, and I will get to them at the end during the Q&A session. Quick overview. Cloud computing, as most of you are aware, has become a choice of many organizations. In simple terms, cloud computing lets you aggregate different resources into a shared pool. You're here to learn a bit more about what that can do for your organization. You're essentially aggregating everything, your servers, your storage, your networking into one shared pool, and you can then carve into little slices to run your different systems. However, when you do aggregate everything into one large pool, you end up with some unique challenges that didn't exist in the older IT world. Of course, you'll have to do your own due diligence that some pieces of cloud computing really do work the way you're told by your different vendors. So one of the things is owning your own private cloud. We'll talk about a couple of concepts here, a couple of different approaches. The first is the idea of a conservative approach. This encompasses a very traditional idea about IT infrastructure. And when dealing with people first migrating to the cloud, this seems like the least amount of change required by an organization to get into cloud computing. Co-location, a step forward from the conservative approach, it's a way for small, medium businesses who don't have a data center of their own to get the advantages of that. And of course, there's the option of outsourcing your management of your cloud sources to an outside party. So let's start with a conservative approach. It's a common approach for organizations that you house everything yourself. This is a traditional instance of a private cloud. You own everything from soup to nuts. You manage everything, you deal with procurement, and everything else associated with running your own data center. Aside from the idea of virtualization of your resources, it really isn't that different from what you're doing today by running everything on physical servers. However, there's still some challenges to resource usage that aren't immediately obvious. For example, storage usage and performance will be different than before. You could be running the exact same apps as before, with the same workloads as before, but the virtualization on these servers on the array will change the workload profile from what you were used to. Identifying these bottlenecks to performance can be a difficult process. The co-location approach. It's not that different from the conservative approach. However, you've moved your essential infrastructure to an external data center, where you no longer have to deal with providing the services that are required. For example, security, power, and cooling with the associated redundancy. Networking is an area where you can frequently benefit. Most data centers are connected to a variety of network providers that allow a diversity and competitive pricing that may not be available in your current location. Be aware that being in a large data center doesn't guarantee your systems will never go down. But it should mean that your infrastructure won't go down because of issues with power or cooling. And if you have contracted with multiple network providers, your networking shouldn't fail if one provider has an issue. Of course, your systems can still go down from human error if someone pushes the wrong switch or uploads a bad config file. A couple of examples of why you want to move from your own data center to a dedicated facility. These are a couple of people we've worked with in the past. Customer A, a small medical insurance provider. They have a nice location, but it's too close to a river. About once every other year or so, the basement of the building gets flooded and power is lost. One would think after the first time, moving to a data center would be obvious. However, there were assurances by building management that things would be different, etc. All the things they'd want to make your customer happy. However, after the third time, their critical systems were moved to a data center. Customer B. This is a major financial institution that we currently do business with. They have a well-designed data center on the 10th floor of their office building which they are located. The building isn't that old, but a plumbing leak, which the financial institution was not responsible for, caused building management to shut down the cooling water to their data center. Systems had to be shut down or the heat would rise to damaging levels. There's two instances of where moving to an external data center from your own location can be advantageous. However, I want you to be aware that even being in a top-tier data center, there is no 100% guarantee. On October 10th, 2013, there was a smoke alert at a GigaNet data center near Chicago. You can Google this instance. It got a bit of press. Although there was no fire, the presence of smoke set off an alarm, and the fire marshal made the decision to have GigaNet shut down power to the building, including UPS and backup generators, causing an outage for all of the people that were housed in that building. Moving on, we'll talk about outsourcing. You're letting your IT people focus on your own stuff. You're not worrying about managing your virtual infrastructure. As anyone who's tried to hire a Cisco network engineer knows, it's not an easy task, nor a cheap one. Unless you are a major telco, how often do you really need a full-time network engineer? In the same vein, a storage admin. When something breaks, someone who deals with storage every day will be better and quicker fixing your issue. So do you really need a full-time storage expert? The idea of outsourcing is to let your IT people focus on dealing with your internal needs, supporting desktops, designing apps, dealing with day-to-day operations that make your customers happy. And just because you're an internal IT shop, remember, the people who consume your services are really your customers that you want to make happy. Stepping away from owning your own private cloud is outsourcing it completely. Instead of maintaining the private cloud, what if you could reduce your management and manpower costs, reduce your support costs, reduce CapEx, shorten your procurement and deployment times? Here we go. This is the real reason people look to the cloud: budgets. Honestly, you're in business to make money, and IT is usually all overhead. Do something better and cheaper, and you will be a hero to your organization. As a business, you want to focus on your core competency. If your business is making windows for houses, you want to put all of your efforts into making the best windows possible, not running IT. So let someone else manage your virtual infrastructure for you. Let someone else have virtualization and networking and storage engineers on staff. Let someone else buy new equipment every year and fix it when it breaks. So going all the way, getting away from your own private cloud, there's a couple of different deployment options. You have the hosted private cloud and you have the hybrid cloud. Hosted private cloud, also referred to as a virtual private cloud. Network and server resources are available as you need, integrated with your internal infrastructure. To the user at the desktop, it really shouldn't matter if the SharePoint site that they're accessing is located in the room next door or on the data center 50 miles away. Hybrid solutions, they're a mix of running your own private cloud and having access to a virtual private cloud, allowing you to expand and contract capacity as you require. Hybrid solution is an option for some who run their own private cloud, but want the ability to burst on demand to handle higher volumes of traffic. A couple of examples of this would be a business with large amounts of month-end processing or an e-discovery firm. In the case of month-end processing, why have a dozen servers that are only used 2 days of the month sitting idle the rest of the time? For an e-discovery firm, there's a lot of processing needed on the initial ingest of data, but once that ingest is finished, server resources can be shut down and allocated to other things. I'll give you a real-world example. Neovera currently runs the web infrastructure for a national news organization. I can't give you any names, but a few times a year, they experience many times the normal traffic to their site because of annual special reports. During these high traffic periods, they increase their server count to handle the increased load. However, once the site is returned to normal traffic after a couple of weeks, they can then decommission these application servers and stop paying for those resources. It's essentially a burstable solution. What a hosted cloud business can do for you. So let's focus on this for a moment. If you're on a hosted private cloud, you're really getting the best of all worlds. Servers can be deployed from images in minutes. There's no procurement hassles. You just simply tell your provider, give me another one. As the provider upgrades and replaces equipments, you benefit from that without having to impact your current systems. Hardware failures that once took a server down for hours, servers are now rebooted on new hardware in minutes if the underlying hardware was an issue. So you're cutting risks, you're keeping up your growth pains, you're letting your IT staffers focus on your core business, and you're able to quickly deploy systems. All benefits that make your IT staff more responsive and more of a, shall we say, gold team for your infrastructure. But when determining your cloud approach, you've got to take some things into consideration. We've talked about different options, but private, hybrid, hosted private cloud, not every solution fits every application. So you need to determine what's the right fit for your organization. We'll talk about some of these factors now. Your existing infrastructure. Do you already have substantial investment in infrastructure? What happens to this equipment when you move to a cloud? Licensing. So do you already have a private cloud in your existing infrastructure? More importantly, the resources to run your own private cloud. Are you looking at an aging private cloud and now you need to see whether or not you're going to expand and replace that equipment? What does your IT portfolio look like? Are your apps suited to running in a virtualized infrastructure? Finally, licensing. This is an important piece. It's a cost that can be more exceeding than even hardware usually. A couple of examples. Windows licensing. Do you have Windows data center licenses? Data center licenses allow you to run unlimited Windows guests on a single host, but the guests are restricted to that server. If you want to run on multiple hosts, you need multiple copies of your data center license for those servers. Oracle licensing. If you're in an Oracle shop, you understand that Oracle licensing poses its own challenges. Meeting compliance requirements. There are important regulatory and legal requirements for many businesses: SSA 16, HIPAA, PCI DSS, SOX. You need to make sure any provider that's going to sell you a cloud service can meet these requirements. And you might have additional requirements for data retention, email retention. These things need to be addressed with your provider and make sure that they can meet these needs. Consider other services. Think about the things you may not have now. Many providers have already made the investment in these services. Moving to an external cloud provider may allow you to purchase these services on an a la carte manner, or they may even include these as part of the base service. Next-gen firewall, IDS IPS are very important. Site-to-site VPNs. On backups, encrypted at rest or in transit backups. Off-site storage, either of disk or tape. Fast recovery to your servers if they go down. What kind of disaster recovery does your provider offer? If their site goes down in a major solution, can they bring you up in another one quickly? Can they integrate with third-party providers? Or have you been looking at VDI, and can your provider provide that for you? Think about what it would cost you to implement these yourself. Are these services and products that you're already being asked to provide and wondering how? So the question then becomes, how do we get there from here? Your systems already exist, whether they're physical or they're virtual, whether they're in your IT infrastructure or at another provider. How will you migrate that data and applications? So consider your networking requirements to have at your current site. Will it handle large transfers? What tools or options to virtualization can a solutions partner or provider offer you? What technologies are available? Say for an exchange, can you do exchange replication between two different sites and run an active-active exchange site? If you have file and print services, can you use DFS to migrate your file servers from one site to another? If you're already virtualized, there are VM-based replication technologies. Things from companies like Veeam or PhD Virtual, who specialize in replicating VMs. And then if your provider happens to use the same storage platform as you, there is storage-based replication as well. But now the question of network bandwidth. How will you handle that migration from physical to virtual or virtual to virtual? Movement of large amounts of data can take time. Consider this example. A 100 megabit internet connection. Not an uncommon thing for many offices. That connection can move about 45 gigabytes per hour at maximum. Does your provider allow you to burst to higher data rates? Can the data that you're moving be compressed for higher throughput? What tools can a provider help you with that migration? Understanding applications. These are pretty simple things. Most systems don't work alone. You need to understand your apps. Talk to your developers and support people. If you have dependencies across multiple applications from different vendors, you need to understand those and what those requirements are. Can you migrate one app without impacting the others? Then think about how you're going to do this and move. Are you going to move everything you have into the cloud in one great big bang? Or are you going to do it piecemeal? If you're doing it piecemeal, what bandwidth is available that your services can utilize? Think about services that should remain on premises. It doesn't help if your network connection to the internet goes down and your users internally are down. Leverage the provider's benefits. Do they have availability to do snapshots, advanced backup and recovery, HA that you don't have for services now? Here's what you get from going to someone who's done this before. Lessons learned. We've seen it. We try to organize for it, plan for it. Things happen. So here are some 6 examples. KISS. Keep it simple, Simon, although you may have heard another word there. The simpler the framework and application interdependency, the easier it is to build it right from the start and troubleshoot it when something breaks. You have 57 different pieces talking to each other. When something breaks, troubleshooting it is tough. I mentioned what could move and what shouldn't move. Remember to consider locally required services when you're moving things. Active Directory, File and Print, DHCP. If your local network goes down and all of your Active Directory services have been migrated into a cloud, will your users still be able to log in and do work? Will your phone system stay up? We talked about identifying your applications. If you have groups of applications that must work together, then migrate them together. There's no reason to have an application server that is processing large amounts of database traffic across your WAN. Keep it together so the response is fast. When you do decide to move, identify an achievable goal that can be done in a short time frame. Understand the old physics thing that an object in motion remains in motion. Once you have a pilot project and you successfully moved it, you now have inertia within your own organization to continue this. Further, this pilot project is what you use to work out your troubleshooting problems. If there are issues that you can plan for to make further migrations more seamless, here's where you learn. Legacy apps. Sun apps will not play nice. It's a simple statement, but who hasn't encountered a buggy app that had to be started on the console of the server and then left running with the user not logging off, otherwise the app would close? Finally, this is a tough thing to get across: mindset. Administrators internally to an organization have to change their thinking. A successful transition to the cloud is when the company's own admins buy in. They need to see this as taking a load off of them, not as a reduction in their power or position or responsibilities. A single admin dragging his feet can sabotage a migration if he feels it's a threat to his job. That's most of what we wanted to talk about, and it's some simple things, and we hope it's brought some thoughts to your minds. So we end this presentation, we just want to mention Neovera's cloud solutions. Neovera offers multiple cloud platforms that are SCA 16, HIPAA, and PCI compliant. Whether you choose from our private, hybrid, or custom cloud modes, all of them include dedicated monitoring, management, and backup support services. To sum up of things that make Neovera's offerings unique, we are a full-service firm. We do offer consulting services available to help with making your migrations to the cloud as seamless as possible. Cost savings and flexibilities, allowing customers to purchase servers, storage, and services on a pay-as-you-go basis, reducing your CapEx and turning it into a more manageable OpEx number. And Neovera's growth means that we are continuously upgrading our infrastructure. As new infrastructure technology gets implemented, our customers will see the benefit without any need to purchase it. Please refer to Neovera's website for further information on our cloud solutions. At this time, we'll answer any questions. I think most of the stuff has been fairly simple and understandable. But if anyone would like to ask any questions at this time, we'll open the floor. Seems that there aren't any questions. We'll leave it open for a couple of more minutes. We thank you for your attendance, and we hope this at least gave you some information you didn't have before. This presentation will be available on Neovera's YouTube channel. If you have any further questions after this, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. This will conclude our presentation.